There she is growing her vegetables and taking them to town to sell them. It seems like a very small town. As we all know, social media, content creation, all of these kinds of things, it's not always as it appears. And the Chanel glitter shirt for me was like, hold up, where is this? What's going on? It shook the entire thing.
Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann Bottcher. On our weekly episodes, we will dig into everything you need to know about scaling your service-based business without losing sleep. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back for another episode. It is episode 25 of season 3 of the podcast. Here we are. It is the final episode of the season, and we will be on hiatus. We will have so many different things on the go, planning season 4, meeting with incredible people. There is all sorts of exciting things coming up, but the actual podcast will not be on the air until September. So we are going to talk today about a few different things in regards to the wrap-up of season 3, but I have a valuable and interesting story to share on this week's episode. So we're going to start there. I was at the nail salon with my daughter, and they always have the same YouTube channel playing at the nail salon. So there I am. She's getting her nails done. I'm getting a pedicure. We're enjoying, and they always have the same show. I don't think I would watch this show anywhere other than at the nail salon. I don't even know if I would call it a show. It's a vlog. The channel is about this woman who lives somewhere in Asia in this small town. I don't know if you've ever seen it. The videos are incredible. And as you're there in the nail salon, I find the vlog like mesmerizing. There's no talking, but you hear the sounds of what's going on. And basically this person has like a whole self-sustaining, it seems, kind of house in the mountain. And so, we're chopping down bamboo, we're feeding the pigs and the ducks, and we're doing all of these things. We're building the tools, we're making everything from scratch, we're foraging next to the river. It's absolutely incredible. As a person who isn't really I can cook-ish, but I will say that my solution to most kitchen problems is to buy another kitchen appliance. It doesn't help. So this person, we've got like a machete, and this person comes up with the most incredible things. If you haven't checked it out, just take a peek, watch just a few seconds of a video, and you'll be like, okay, this is interesting. Like I said, I probably wouldn't watch it if it were not on at the nail salon. I wouldn't sit down with a bowl of popcorn. But here's what I noticed. So I'm sitting there watching, and this person is literally gardening in bare feet. She's building the shovel, and then we're transplanting these she's doing all of these things. We're literally building the tools. We're cooking things on fire. We're doing all of the things. She's wearing no shoes, hiking in the mountain to forage for the appropriate piece of bamboo to make into the duck feeder. And she turns around and she's wearing a glitter Chanel shirt. Glitter. You're wearing no shoes in the dirt, building a shovel, and you wear a glitter Chanel shirt. And it was like, whoa. It was just shocking. The glitter Chanel shirt anywhere else, less shocking. As you're standing on the mountainside wearing your hand-woven basket with straps, it's like a laundry basket backpack, best thing I can describe it as, with no shoes, and you're wearing a glitter Chanel shirt. It didn't make sense. It would be like watching I Love Lucy, and all of a sudden, the Jetsons house-made robot rolling in. It's out of place. And it got to me to thinking as I'm sitting there, because my mind gets going. I don't know if this happens to you. You see something random, and all of a sudden you're like, whew, you're so far down a rabbit hole. And I find that whether it's getting your nails done or a massage or going for a walk, showering, anytime where you're just almost at peace with yourself, my mind is down a rabbit hole. And so I got to thinking, how does this apply to other things? I'm thinking about business, of course, and it comes back to marketing, website, branding, all of these types of things, where it's what is out of touch, what is out of place, what doesn't feel on brand. And whether that's you for your personal brand or for your business brand. And I do think that those are two separate things. If you go back to our episode on branding with Steph that we did at the beginning of this season, we were talking about my journey in leaving corporate and not really knowing how I fit in the online space, and then almost going too far one way and then kind of pulling it back the other way to be authentic to who I really was. I think that when we are so consistent in our authenticity, when things are out of place, it's so obvious. So if you have like a brand that's kind of mix mash, out of place, it doesn't stick out as much. But when you're super consistent, it almost feels more offensive to all of a sudden be off brand. I mean, my whole business brand, everything is so orange. And when we're going through the rebrand, someone asked me, oh, are you going to change your colors? And I said, no, I'm going to change the logo, but I'm not going to change the colors. I'm like, first of all, that would cost me a lot, was my first thought, because I see things. Just the other day, I got this super cute notebook. I was in it at Chapters and I saw it's the perfect shade of orange and it says work in progress in this cute kind of thing. And I was like, oh, gotta come with me. I love the work in progress, but if that were a purple notebook, it would just be so out of place for me. You really have to decide who you are in your business, in your brand, in your personal brand, and then be all in on that. I look back at that episode and I think for me, it was so distracting because I'm like, this same person on another nail appointment, there she is growing her vegetables and taking them to town to sell them. It seems like a very small town. As we all know, social media, content creation, all of these kinds of things, it's not always as it appears. And the Chanel glitter shirt for me was like, hold up, where is this? What's going on? It shook the entire thing. And I know that you may think that is so silly. But I want to tell you about another situation, and I almost feel bad for saying this. You know, I've talked about Taylor a few episodes this season, and you might think, oh my gosh, we're talking Taylor Swift again. Just very briefly. When Taylor Swift was at the Super Bowl, watching her boyfriend play, being a regular human, there she is on the Jumbotron taking shots with her friend. I was like, oh. And my husband said, why are you cringing? I was like, well, it's kind of, it's not great. It's not great. And he's like, she is at the Super Bowl. Everybody's doing shots. And he kind of like reminded me, and I was like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't, but we do a little. And so I think when we're out in the world, it's the same thing I think when someone's driving down the road. Now, if you're from Canada, you know that there is a big group of people that have some big stickers on their vehicle protesting the current government. That's all. I'll leave it at that. The other day I saw someone with a daycare van. There she's got our big daycare logo on the van. And just below it, we've got a big "F the government" in full letters on the van. And I thought, ugh. Then you see someone else that isn't a business vehicle. And while I wouldn't personally, although I don't love our current government, passionately don't love our current government, I would never put that on my vehicle. But if it's not a company vehicle, it is what it is. But here's the thing. Your business can service people who like the current government and don't like the current government. I just don't think we need to be offensive. And while I'm not comparing Taylor Swift drinking shots to that, I am loving that she's able to go and live her life. I think that when you do things that seem off mark from where you currently are, it causes question in the mind. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I've been known to have a few drinks, shots included, but I wouldn't do it at a company event. And now she's a public figure. I think it was just totally off chance that the Jumbotron, that's when she was on. Kind of one of those whoops. It's just one of those things that makes you think, it's off brand. She comes across as very wholesome. You can do whatever you want. And sometimes if we're thinking Taylor Swift, let's talk, Miley Cyrus. She was so wholesome, very like Disney pop princess. And then went way the other way. And if you've ever heard her talk about it, she almost had to prove she wasn't the kid from Disney anymore. And so if you're trying to change, if you're trying to rebrand, then yes, you're going to do those kinds of things. But know that when you step out of whatever your normal box is, people think about it. People talk about it. And in marketing, people thinking about you and talking about you is not a bad thing. It just comes down to what is the objective? I know I've said it over and over on the podcast with so many different guests because ultimately it always comes back to this question. So if you are doing your marketing and you want to get people talking, you want to shake things up, then do things out of the norm. If you want people to know that you are consistent in offering the same thing and tried and true, well, then do that. If you want to be known as the person who's in the woods with no access to running water or electricity, and you're going to garden in your bare feet, then I would suggest not wearing designer glitter clothing. But that's just my opinion on that. It's one of those pieces where we have to be consistent to what we are. And I think that over the years, we've heard lots of situations where we thought something was one way and something later comes out in terms of like, oh, wow, and it's shocking. We just have to decide when we want to use that, where we can use it for our benefit. What is the objective? I would say overall, I try to just be consistent. That's generally who I am. So I was recently at Costco leading up to an event with a couple of friends. Now, I'm known in the group to be the introverted, quiet, non-peopling one. Of the three of us, that's just who I am. There we are, we're in the Costco, and I'm standing next to the berries. And this lady said to me, I don't even remember how it started. I don't typically talk to people in Costco. But she said something to me about the berries. They were really expensive or something. And I said, whew, here you are at Costco buying the jumbo pack of berries. And I always think, are my kids going to eat them fast enough before they spoil? And I said, oh, at that price, they better eat them fast, I feel like is what started the conversation. And she said, oh, I wash my berries in vinegar and blah, blah, blah. And then I put them in jars and it just helps them last so much longer. And I said, oh, that's great. My two friends that I'm at Costco with are standing next to the cart and the look on their faces was like they had seen a ghost. I was like, what's up? You were just talking to a random stranger next to the berries in Costco. And I was like, yeah. They were like, what? We're so confused because it was outside of my normal. And the funniest thing was that night we're at the event. That's why we were at Costco. We were getting some stuff for the event. We're at the event and my mom is there. And one of my friends says, and then we saw her talking to someone at Costco next to the berries. And my mom was like, well, that's unusual. What was going on? Like, what's going on? It was so out of character. Every once in a while, you gotta just keep them guessing. But taking that to your business. And so we often feel like we have to create new messaging. We have to say the same thing in a different way. And I think that in some instances, yes, we can't take the same post, we can't take the same thing, but I think we can do it a lot more than we all think we can. It's interesting because if you go through really successful TikTok channels, you can see that oftentimes they've taken one thing and talked about it three ways. Because on the feed, you're not watching the first video and then the second video and the third video. We're focused on our profile, almost having like a collection of things. But in order to really nail it, it needs to be consistent. And I think our messaging, our services, we talked last week about knowing who your market is now compared to who they were when they started with you. And I think that all really ties into the discussion here where we're talking and saying, okay, we need to be consistent in what we're doing. We need to know who we are. And we, as a business, who are you? It really is a continuation of the discussion from last week in that we need to know who we are and what message we're putting out and not think that we have to always do something different. I have a client and she has marketing done by a team. I was doing some research for her, looking at a few different things that she was offering and whatnot. And I thought, oh, this is a beautiful, beautiful feed. As I kept going and looking at it, I thought, okay, it's very consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get. But if people like what they're getting, why would you need to give them something else? You can just give them more of what they like. Every day I go and I get a coffee. I was a coffee drinker and then I laid off lately. But I don't go, you go to the place, you still get the same thing. I don't think, I had a coffee yesterday, I better mix it up. Humans like consistency. No one really likes surprises, not all the time. If it's not a surprise party, I don't want any surprises. I like consistency. You have to know what you're getting. How does it all tie in? Season 4 of the podcast. We're planning, we're prepping, and I've been talking about it. I really feel like I've almost been sentimental about the podcast journey the last few episodes. We've been doing a lot of planning for season 4, digging into old episodes, what did really well, what didn't do as well. There's a few episodes along the way, I will say, that have really crushed it. People email about them, people ask questions about them, they reshare them. They're still some of our top episodes. And so, I look to that and I think, what are people really enjoying? How do we give more of that? Because the podcast really by design offers some pretty wide range of topics. We've almost always done a solo episode followed by a guest episode, alternating. There have been times where we have adjusted the schedule based on different things. Sometimes a guest has a specific date that they're launching, a book or an offer, and they really want to tie it into that. Or we change the recording schedule based on sickness or technical difficulties, those kinds of things. But I will say that season 3, we've kind of narrowed the topic a little bit, and the feedback on that has been great. While we serve service-based businesses and we continue to grow the podcast, I'm so excited to share with you season 4, some of the guests that we have been chatting with, getting these calls scheduled. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited about the direction of the podcast and really so appreciative for how far we've come. I have so much gratitude for those who were guests on the podcast in season 1, because all of those episodes, almost all of them, were recorded before even the first episode went live. I touched on it last week, but those that were willing to share their knowledge and connect and do those things before the podcast was really a podcast, those people really believed in what we were doing. I have so much gratitude for them. Season 2, we saw different guests, some repeat guests. We do have guests back when people have really been positive about the episode. We've done it a couple of times. As we keep growing and keep going, we've narrowed the focus a little bit, but still continue to really have a wide range. Going back, I look and we have some guests that have contradicted other guests. And I kind of got to wondering, is that okay? Should we change that? Does the message always have to be consistent? And I think the part that is always consistent is that I'm going to ask someone, why did they get into their business? I'm going to tie it back to what is the objective? I'm going to ask for a tangible tip. There are certain parts of this podcast that are very consistent. And I think that every person's business, situation, journey resonates with something different. And so while we have tightened up the topics a little bit, there were a few things in season 1 and 2 that were just a little bit more in the wings of the topics. So we've narrowed the focus a little bit, but I like that the guests give different thoughts, different opinions, because you know what? We really talk them through. There's so much value in learning and having conversations with people who have opinions and thoughts different to your own. And so this podcast will continue to share different opinions, different thoughts, different points of view, but it will always be rooted in going back to what is the objective. It will always be rooted in providing tangible value to our listeners that they can take and implement into their business. And we will continue to have incredible guests that offer their knowledge, wisdom, insights so that you can go and scale your business and do amazing things. Because that is one thing for certain, is that this podcast is for people who want to change the game. They want to revolutionize their business. They want to scale. They want to grow. Maybe they just want to create massive impact in their industry. At the end of the day, that is our focus. And season 4 is going to be absolutely incredible. I want to say thank you to all of our listeners who tune in. If you can please leave a review for the podcast, it helps us grow. It gives us feedback. It gives us and lets us know what you want to hear more of. Share the podcast with someone else who is looking to grow and scale their business. Guys, it has been an incredible, incredible season. Going back through this journey, where we came from, where we are now, I can only have so much appreciation for those who tune in, give the feedback, share the episodes. Thank you. Season 4 will launch in September. Stay tuned. We will update on the official date. Guys, thank you so much for being here from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
We're all out of time for today, but the fun doesn't stop here. Make sure to subscribe to the Service-Based Business Society podcast on your preferred podcast app. Your likes, shares, and reviews really do help the show. Until next time, have a great week.